Hey guys, welcome to Pagan Happy Hour. I am so excited to be sharing my Friday with you. I hope you all are doing well. I see my cat Gregory has decided to join us perhaps for Pagan Happy Hour. And thank you guys for showing up. I hope you brought a drink with you because today we are going to be chatting about autumn. I'm going to be sharing some ways that you can incorporate your pagan experience into the season. And I'm going to be going over some deities I associate with this time of year. I'll be sharing some harvest and apple spells. Then we'll talk a little bit about the autumn equinox and Samhain, but not too much because we're not quite there yet. And of course, I want to hear all about the ways that you incorporate your pagan practice into autumn. So yeah, let's jump into it. And if you are new here, welcome. I do Pagan Happy Hour every Friday at 5 Central, 6 Eastern. And I am now chiming in from Savannah, Georgia, which is known as the Ghost Coast. So I am so excited to now be located in the most haunted city in the States. So I'll be keeping you updated as to any paranormal activity that might be happening as we move closer to Samhain. But today we are talking about autumn. And if you do like, Pagan Happy Hour, if you do enjoy this show, there are 2 ways that you can support it. The first way is through Patreon. If you choose to join my Patreon community, you gain access to my Discord server, which is a great way to just kind of connect with fellow pagans and witches. And the other way you can support the show is through Super Chats, which is the $ button at the bottom of the chat, where you can donate any amount and your question or comment will pop up really big. So I'll be sure to see it and to bring it into the conversation. And as we go along, I'm going to be looking over here at the comments so I can try and bring in as much of your ideas and your thoughts into the conversation as well. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to cue the drink music, and I would love for you in the comments to tell me where you are watching from and what you're drinking tonight. Let me get that music on. And I'm having kind of a weird drink. I put some vodka in with some kombucha and a splash of apple cider. So tell me what you're drinking tonight, though. Let's see. I see people chiming in from Philadelphia, from South Texas, from DC, from Seattle, Florida, New Jersey, Minnesota, South Carolina, the Spokane Valley. Let's see, Martinez, California, Houston, Hungary. Someone else from Savannah. Cheers. Let's see, Kansas, Italy, Fargo, North Carolina, England, Colorado, Italy, Pennsylvania, Iowa, and another Colorado. Wow, you guys are from all over. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so excited you chose to join me this Friday. So let's jump into the conversation. So, autumn. It is my personal favorite time of the year. I don't know about you guys. Make a comment if it's also your favorite season. I'm personally an October baby. My birthday's on the 17th. So this time of year has always been fun for me. I in part attribute my witchiness to the fact that, I was born in the autumn, and I love all things fall, all things autumnal, and all things spooky. But, I'd love to hear from you guys because I want to know, what are some of the things you do, whether it's decorating, eating, part of your rituals? How do you kind of bring in that autumn season into your practice? I'm going to be sharing, of course, some of the things I like to think about, some of the things I do. But, this is a community, so I'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas as we're chatting. So let's start, with just kind of the simplicity Gosh, I can't speak today. The most simple ways to celebrate this season in my mind. One of the things I've been doing a lot, especially since I moved to Savannah, is a daily walk. And on the one hand, it gets you out into nature, which is good for, mind, body, and spirit, of course. But it also gives you some space and some time to notice those subtle changes in the season. And I love going on a daily walk. It really does help me feel more connected to these natural rhythms, to these cycles of the seasons. And it's been quite a journey. I've lived all over the States and some places internationally. So fall is always different for me. And I'm curious to see what it will be like here in Savannah. Of course, it's not going to get that cold. The leaves probably won't change as much, which is a big shift from where I grew up in upstate New York, which is like peak autumn in terms of the foliage and the autumnal beauty. But I always still notice little details, little subtle changes. So even if you live in a more southern climate, there's still subtleties that you can notice and pick up on. And going on that daily walk is one of the easiest things, in my opinion, you can do as a pagan to help feel connected to these seasonal changes. Let me see what you guys have to say about that. A couple of you all are chiming in about some things you do in autumn. So let's see, in the comments, Daka is mentioning this is a time for preserving food for winter and eating seasonally. Yes, definitely eating seasonally is another one of those super easy ways to incorporate a little into your daily life. And when you think about our pagan ancestors, they were, of course, eating seasonally because there was no other option. So likewise, doing this ourselves in the modern age can help remind us a bit of our ancestors, of the struggles they went through. And for me, it's also fun. Sometimes when we have so many options at our disposal, it can get overwhelming at times in the kitchen. And I kind of like to confine my options a bit towards what's in season. And again, this is going to be something that's very different depending on where you live. I'll probably have access to different fruits and vegetables than you will. But it's always a great thing to do that can help nourish your body, but also help, again, connect you to that seasonal change. Let's see. A lot of you guys I can see in the comments are talking about cooking, right? Fall food is stupendous, of course. Let's see. I see someone here mentioning going to cemeteries, which is something I often do during this season as well. Of course, this is the season where the veil between the two worlds is at its thinnest. And the chances of potentially connecting, potentially seeing something paranormal definitely goes up quite a few notches. So visiting a cemetery is a great thing to do. And also, of course, this is the time where we honor our ancestors and we honor our deceased family members. Now, this is something I do more in October, closer to Samhain, but you can definitely start doing that now. Oh, and I see we have a super chat here. Thank you so much. Very generous. That says, let's see, the same walk every day to the creeks on our farm. The walk is the same, but the sounds and animals, even the trees, are different each time. Yes, I love that sentiment. And one of the things I love about being pagan is it kind of forced me to notice these things in the natural world that I was just ignoring, that I was almost blind to. But when you start to actually look at the world around you and spend time and give yourself the space to notice, it really opens up a whole nother world that I find just so fascinating. So thank you so much for that super chat and such a great comment. So let me see here, checking a couple other of your thoughts. Oh, and I see Graves is mentioning about eating seasonally, that farmers markets make it easy to eat seasonally. Definitely true. I just discovered my local farmers market since I moved here, and I'm going to go back hopefully like every week. We'll see. So we started off talking a bit about going on daily walks, eating seasonally, but another thing you can do that's a bit more pagan oriented is try to connect with some of the deities that are more associated with this season. Now, that can mean a number of different things, but a couple thoughts came to mind. The first one being Dionysus. So, this would be a deity that would have been honored during the month of September, primarily because that is when the wine harvest would occur. So, of course, that's a deity we want to recognize for Pagan Happy Hour. Cheers to Dionysus. But Dionysus and other wine or vineyard deities like Suselius, who is a Gaelic deity, these are gods that would have been on many ancient Romans' minds at this time of year. And not just in ancient Rome, there was a lot of winemaking that occurred throughout Europe and beyond around this time. So there would be many different deities that were associated with this process. And of course, any other harvest deity would be one to work with. So, of course, we have a lot of spring deities like Persephone and even Demeter that are all about the growing of the season. But there are also some deities that are more closely tied to the harvesting, like Ceres, the goddess of grain, comes to mind. Let me know in the comments if you have other deities that you personally like to associate with that harvesting time of the year. You can also think about some deities that are connected to the afterlife during fall, right? Because this is that time where we are thinking about death a little bit, and we are thinking about that veil between the worlds. So deities such as Hades from the Greek pantheon or Hel from the Norse pantheon might be ones to try to honor or leave offerings for or work with at your altar at this time of year. And, you could also look towards deities that are associated with magic or witchcraft, because the fall season is the most witchy, I would say. So working with goddesses such as Hecate would be a great thing to do during this season. So it's going to be different for everyone what deities they associate with this time of year. And of course, it will depend on which pantheon or pantheons you like to incorporate into your pagan practice. But I think it can be really fun to think about how you define autumn, how you celebrate this time of year, and what people were doing historically in these ancient pagan societies. So let me see your thoughts on that. So let's see. Okay. I see. Someone mentioned the Slavic goddess of the earth harvest, Mokosh, which is another great one to think about this time of year. Let's see. Okay, let's see if there are any other ones. So Demeter is interesting because Demeter is usually associated with things growing, but you could also associate her with the harvest as a whole. So I see a couple of you guys mentioning Demeter, as well as, Persephone too, because she is the wife of Hades. So she does go down to the underworld at this time. So that would kind of make sense as well. I see in the comments Draven here mentioning Sif from the Norse pantheon, whose golden hair was representative of wheat, and Loki cut her hair and it represented the harvest. Yes, and I don't know if you guys watched the Marvel, Disney Marvel show Loki recently, but they actually had that scene where Sif is angry at Loki for cutting her hair. I really enjoyed that they incorporated that scene into the show. Let's see. I see some of you guys mentioning just the crone representation of the goddess. Yes, this is the time of the crone when you're looking at the maiden mother crone triple goddess idea. So yeah, anything honoring the crone at this time would work well. Let's see, another Slavic deity, Morana, who is the goddess of death and winter. So that would be an interesting deity to work with. Oh, and we have another super chat here from Daka. Thank you very much. That says, shout out to Slavic gods Mokash, who is the goddess of family and housework. Ooh, and then Silmargol, I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing these so wrong, I'm sure, who is the god of sun and fire, and Radgost, who is the god of abundance and hospitality. Yes, I've been really wanting to learn more about the Slavic deities. It's definitely on my to-do list. Let's see. Okay, great. So we talked a bit about some deities here. Now, one of the things I wanted to share too is some harvest and some apple spells, because I know not all of you practice witchcraft, but I know some of you guys watching might be interested. And there are a lot of spells associated with this time. Now, it is very tricky to find historical spells. While there are a few, they are few and far between. So the ones I'm mentioning don't necessarily have much basis in historical pagan societies as far as we know. But there are really endless variations of spells on these kind of different themes, starting with a harvest spell. Let me have a drink first here, and then we'll jump into it. So this is a fun harvest spell I came across that I wanted to share with you guys that involves a little candle magic. So it starts with 2 candles or even just 1 candle that can be an autumn color. So, you know, orange, red, yellow, something like that, and a cauldron. And what you want to do is first take a piece of paper and write what you have harvested into your life this year. So what good things have come about in your life since last autumn? And write that down on a piece of paper. If you want to be extra special, you could then make that into a sigil. You can check out my Pagan Happy Hour episode on sigil crafting if you're interested. But after you've done that, then you want to light the paper with the candle flame and put it in the cauldron so it burns in the cauldron. Then you can take some pumpkin or squash seeds, and after the paper has fully burned and now it's just cool ashes, add the seeds into the cauldron, mix it up a bit, and try to visualize a white light, a positive energy going into those ashes and into those seeds. So then the next spring, you will plant that mixture of ashes and seeds into the ground, and hopefully a pumpkin or some type of harvest food will come from that. But I think it's just really a great way to both give thanks for what we have harvested and to push fate perhaps in a good direction for the following year. So that's a fun little simple harvest spell. There are many out there. There are also a ton of apple magic and apple spells. And this in part is interesting because I think a lot of these spells we do have records from predominantly come from English history, specifically from the folk that called themselves the cunning men or the cunning women from the early modern period in Britain. They did write down several folk traditions and spells that we do still have records of today. And because apples were a huge part of English autumn life, they kind of got incorporated into spell work. Now, there are many different ones out there. One of the older ones that I found and enjoy isn't going to be for everyone, but this is a spell where you carve the skin of the apple in one long strip, and then you throw it over your shoulder, and then you turn around and look at how it laid. How did that apple strip fall? And does it resemble a particular letter? And they say that the letter that the apple strip resembles is going to be what is going to be the name of your soulmate. It's going to be the first letter of that name. So that's kind of just a little cute folk tradition that I find fun. I mean, I'm already married, so I'm not going to try that one. But if you're looking for your soulmate, you can definitely try that one out. Another one you can do, which is super simple, is just to plant an apple tree in your backyard if you happen to have a backyard. Apples really do represent abundance and prosperity overall. So planting an apple tree in your backyard is really just a way to bring a lot of abundance into your home as a whole. And one last one that you can do is for a home protection charm, where again, you start with an apple and then you peel it in one long peel. Then you take a clove of garlic, being known to ward against evil from a folkloric perspective. Then sage, which is known for dispelling negative energy. And then basil for protection. Of course, if you don't want to use sage, you don't have to use sage. You can use any type of herb that you feel is something that can help dispel that negative energy. And then you use basil, and then what you do is you take those ingredients, so like the garlic, sage, and basil, and you wrap that apple peel around it, tie it with twine, and then you can then put that little bundle. You can either hang it over a threshold, like a doorway, or if you happen to have a wreath like on your front door, you can kind of tuck it or hide it in there as well. So that can be a fun little protection charm you can do for your home involving apples. Let me see what you guys have to say in the comments. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I see a lot of you guys are talking about apples and the goddess Athena. Apparently Athena was connected to apples. I did not know that. So thank you for sharing that little tidbit. Here's a really interesting one. Daka in the comments says there is a Czech and Slovak tradition involving apples, where you cut the apple, and if the seeds in the apple make the shape of a star, the year will be good. If they make a cross, the year will be bad. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Let's see. Let me know, of course, if you have any other apple magic that you want to share. Let's see. Of course, apples too are great things to leave as offerings. That's one of the things I often use for offerings, especially for outside. I tend to not leave offerings that's like food or liquid much in my home if I'm leaving an offering for a deity. Instead, I'll cut like up some apples, something like that, and then take it outside and find like a tree and leave the offering out there. So I often use apples for deity offerings. It's a great thing to do. Let's see. Okay, great. And of course, eating seasonally. There are so many ways to incorporate apples. I'm a big fan of, apple cider, mulled cider that I put apple slices into, and, of course, apple pie, apple crisp, all of those delicious things. And, incorporating a little kitchen magic can be fun too. If you are interested in sigil work, burning or wood burning a sigil into your kitchen wooden spoon can be a fun thing to do. Or just anytime you are making a dish, spending a moment to kind of infuse a little bit of that positive energy into what you're cooking can be just something simple, an easy little witchy thing to do in your daily life. So let's see. I see in the comments that many of you all are also mentioning how you like to use apples as offerings. So I'm glad I'm not alone in that one. Let's see. So, another thing I wanted to talk about a bit are the two main pagan holidays that occur in autumn, those being the autumn equinox and Samhain. So the autumn equinox is a time when the daylight and the nighttime is equal. So it's this moment of great balance. And the autumn equinox, sometimes you might, have heard the term Mabon. That's the Wiccan term for the autumn equinox, though that term is a bit newer. That really didn't start till kind of Gerald Gardner kind of came up with that idea of using the term Mabon. But people have been celebrating the autumn equinox for a really long time. In fact, we see many kind of stone circles that are oriented towards the equinoxes. So, this is a time to kind of think about that balance in our own lives as well. So I always try to think about the autumn equinox as a time to reflect on how do I bring that balance into my own life, into my own daily schedule, because often that's something that, can get out of whack real easily. But we're going to be talking a lot more specifically about the autumn equinox traditions in next week's Pagan Happy Hour, because I want to dedicate a whole episode to the autumn equinox and sharing some historical things about the equinox, some ways that our pagan ancestors have celebrated the equinox in the past. So, stay tuned for next week for that one. And if you want to jump ahead a bit, I linked a ton of previous videos I've done about the autumn equinox and this time of year as a whole. I put a video on 3 books I recommend for learning more about the autumn equinox and pagan celebrations of autumn. I also have a video in there about making Mabon cider and a couple other fun videos. I have a unique one about John Barleycorn, which is this fascinating English folklore tradition that's associated with harvesting the barley in early autumn. So I have all of those linked down below if you want to jump into that. But we will, of course, be going over the autumn equinox in more detail next week. And of course, the ultimate one, the big one, your favorite Samhain, I'm sure. We still got quite a few weeks before we do our Samhain edition of Pagan Happy Hour, but I do have plenty of content on Samhain. So if you are interested in learning more about this holiday, where it comes from, what those traditions are, and how you can incorporate them into your own practice, a lot more talking about Samhain coming up. You guys are just kind of starting to get into the season, and that's totally fine. We have plenty of time to discuss Samhain. But let me check your comments here before we move on to a couple other ideas. Let's see. I see a comment here about the term Mabon. Let's see, it's a correction. So it wasn't coined by Gerald Gardner, but by Aidan Kelly around 1970. So it is a much more recent than even Gerald Gardner. Yeah. So I used to use the term Mabon, but now I mostly use the term autumn equinox. Let's see. Great comments. So, some other things that you can, of course, do is decorate your home to bring a little bit of that autumn season into your life. I did a video last year about sustainable autumn decor, which is something I'm really trying to get into, where I am not necessarily buying things each autumn or buying things at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or craft stores or things like that, but instead decorating my home with entirely natural items. So last year I went on a pumpkin shopping spree, which you can check out in my video linked below. So I personally love to decorate with natural pumpkins, gourds, things like that. And, leaves too as they fall, but here in Savannah, I probably won't have as much of that. But even things that you can collect on your daily walk, such as, different branches, different things that might be falling from the trees. There's these really funky, spiky looking like acorn things that I see all over the sidewalks here. So I think I'll gather a few of those. So I think the purpose of that is to, on the one hand, of course, shopping sustainably is better, even better if you're collecting all your autumn decor for free, right? Because it's just in nature. But also it helps you recognize what the season actually looks like where you are at, right? So your autumn decor might look a bit different than what we traditionally associate with autumn. Of course, you don't have to fully give up the pumpkins and the leaves and the gourds and everything like that if that is not how autumn looks where you live. But I think you can still incorporate a bit of that local flavor into your own autumn decor. And that's something I really love to do. So I have lots of like altar tour videos where you can kind of see that. And of course, too, if you are decorating your altar and you want this as a time to honor a particular deity, perhaps one of those that we mentioned that is kind of associated with the season, either, getting a statue of that deity, that can be a bit pricey. So what I actually often do is I will find a picture I like of the deity and then I'll print it off and then put it in like a little frame and put that on my altar. So that's really cheap, basically free. And another thing I'll do too is I might put a couple tarot cards on the altar that I think might be representative of that particular deity too. So that's something I like to decorate with, and just kind of really anything natural as much as I can to avoid spending money and buying stuff from China. But if you love that stuff, no hate, you do you. That's great. Oh, let's see. Oh, and I see we have a super chat from Leonard James. Thank you so much. That says Georgia housewarming. Thank you. Yes, I did just move into my new apartment here in Savannah. And in order to live in the historic area, I did have to downsize, which is why I no longer have an office. So I'm sitting on the floor with you guys. I might be able to come up with a better background situation down the road, but thank you for bearing with me in the meantime. So let's see. Oh, I see a comment here from Genghis Galahad asking, what is the weather and climate like in Georgia? Well, right now it is still pretty warm. This is my first time in Georgia. I've only been here 2 weeks, so I'm not quite sure what the fall will be like here, but I can tell you I am so excited for seeing other people's Halloween decor when it comes time for that, because the historic district in Savannah is just filled with all of these stunning old mansions and different types of architecture. So I know the decorations are going to be insane. I was thinking the other day that like this would be the perfect place to grow up as a kid in, because all these houses here are going to have great Halloween decorations, and they're all giving out full-size candy bars. So I wish I grew up here. But it is certainly stunning. I highly recommend visiting this city if you ever get the chance. So let's see. I'm just checking your comments and your questions here. Let's see. Oh, I see someone's asking if Savannah is conservative or liberal. I don't really know for sure since I just moved here, but Georgia did recently turn blue in the last presidential election. So I guess it's becoming a lot more liberal is what I'm guessing. But I'm sure I'll find out the longer I'm here. Let's see. Oh, I see another comment here asking for me to do a video on my own autumn decor. Yes, I hope to do that. I don't really have much yet since I'm still kind of unboxing from the move and I'm not quite settled. But as soon as I do purchase some pumpkins and some gourds and things like that, I might do a little autumn video tour for you all. But do keep in mind, I am a bit more of a minimalist than many other YouTubers. So it might be a bit disappointing compared to everyone else's like autumn decor videos. But yeah, so let's see. Oh, and I wanted to mention too that I would love to hear from you guys if there are any specific topics for Pagan Happy Hour that you really want to see. I've been enjoying doing the polls every Thursday, which chooses the topic for Pagan Happy Hour. So if you have any topics that you would like to see me add to the Thursday poll, definitely let me know. Of course, the best way is to, reach out through Patreon. A lot of my patrons will often send me messages through the platforms with topic ideas that they want me to put in the poll. So I do that as well. But of course, in the comments, feel free. I really want to make sure that I'm covering topics that you specifically are interested in. And now I want to leave a little time and a little space towards answering any questions you have. So do please feel free in the comments to share any questions you would like me to answer, either about the autumn season, paganism, or really anything in general. We have about, I would say, 15 more minutes, and I'm only like halfway done with my drink. So do please, in the comments, let me know, your thoughts, your questions, and I'll give some time to answering them for you all. Let's see. Oh, Benja is asking why I left Dallas so soon. Yeah, I was only in Dallas 1 year. I did originally move to Dallas from Chicago for my husband's job, but because of COVID, he ended up working remote, so it didn't even matter. So kind of had this weird opportunity to live wherever we wanted, which is bizarre, right? It seems so crazy that like some people nowadays have this opportunity to live where they want or to choose where they live. And this is the only time in my life that I've ever had that opportunity. So I had visited Savannah a couple times in the past and had absolutely fallen in love with the city. So I thought this fit our lifestyles much better. I'm personally not much of a driver. I like to walk everywhere. And so Dallas, obviously you have to drive absolutely like everywhere there. And I'm not really into that. I really like a city that's more on a human scale, that's really walkable, really cozy. So yeah, I chose Savannah. And also part of it was, I don't know if this is happening where you live, but the apartment I was renting in Dallas, like upped the rent by $500 when my lease ran up. So there was no way I was going to stay there for another year. So I had to come up with an alternative. But yeah, so far I am absolutely pleased as punch with my new locale. I just love it here, being close to Forsyth Park and all the different beautiful squares. It's, I think some people call Savannah the Garden City, and it really is. If you are a nature lover, this is such a beautiful city to be in. Let's see, but yeah, thanks for the question. Let's see. Oh, here's an interesting one. What tarot cards do you associate with autumn or autumn deities? So if you're thinking about the latter half of autumn, so like Samhain, I would definitely pick the death card in particular for that one. Let's see, if you were thinking earlier autumn, that's a good one. So you could pick any of the wands cards. Now, wands are associated with the element fire in tarot. And they often have a lot of that fire colors, a lot of oranges and reds. But personally, I always feel this kind of like fresh energy when autumn begins each year. And wands and the element fire are often associated with energy and passion, which is something I've always connected with this time. So certain wands cards like the Ace of Wands would be good. Let's see, other major ones. Let me think. I mean, there are certain cards that are good any time of the year, like the Magician, because it's all about manifestation. Let's see, certain cards, I do associate more with specific deities, like the Empress, I mostly associate with Venus, the Emperor with Mars. They aren't particularly autumn deities. The Hermit and the Hanged Man, I often associate with Odin. So, you could, pick any of those if you are wanting to work with those deities. But I think probably the card I associate the most with autumn is the death card, right? So yeah, good question though. Let's see. Oh, and if you're unfamiliar, I do have my own tarot deck. I have it linked below. So I made that deck with my friend Jamie. And it is a photography style deck that is based on the Rider-Waite system. So definitely click that link below. It's called the Key Tarot, and you can see pictures, you can see videos of it, full walkthroughs. So if you are a tarot enthusiast and you'd like to support the show, of course, buying a deck is a great way to do that. Let's see. Oh, okay. Great question. Angelica is asking, what is a good autumn equinox tradition that children can participate in? So yeah, a lot of different things, I think. Especially, if you're going on a walk and you want to collect materials for decorating, having your kids collect some branches, some pine cones, whatever is kind of in your natural environment, and then help use those items to create a little, decor centerpiece on a table, or to put those items on an altar, can be something fun to do. Now there are kind of a lot of just generic like autumn crafts, involving leaves you can do with kids. But I think, just trying to take those, traditional autumn crafts, but then put a layer of meaning on top of it, thinking about, what does it mean that it is harvest time? What does harvest mean for you? So adding that kind of extra layer of meaning to those kind of fun children's autumnal games and crafts. Let's see, I don't have kids, so I don't have too many ideas there, but great question. And if you in the comments do have kids and want to share some things you like to do during autumn, for sure do that. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, the comments are flying in. Let me see. A couple other super chats here came in. Let's see. Craig is asking, have you ever considered the difference between magic in the game world as opposed to the real world? I'm not quite sure what you mean there. Like, it makes me think of like Magic the Gathering, the game, like the card game. So maybe you can clarify in the comments what you mean there. But thank you so much for that $10 donation. Let's see. And another super chat here from Daka. Thank you so much. That says, do you associate autumn with old age and the elderly? For me, it always represented that closing but still abundant time of life. Yes, definitely. I am always thinking of the crone or the sage as the time of, kind of honoring the elderly and respecting their wisdom, which is something we really don't do much in Western or American societies. I know they do a bit better of a job with this in like the Far East and like Japan and China and kind of respecting the elders. But yeah, I do think that is important, and it is a time to spend time with those in our life that are older and to listen to their stories and to learn from their wisdom. So yeah, I definitely associate this time of year with that. Great question. And one of the things I really like too about paganism is as a woman, it gives me the permission and the space to age compared to modern society. I love the concept of the triple goddess, where that crone is a crucial role. And the crone is someone who is honored and respected. And so much of our modern American culture bases female worth on youth. And obviously that's not something you can, sustain forever. And I like that paganism gives us the opportunity to recognize worth as lived wisdom, not just about beauty and youth. So that's always been something kind of deeply personal to me. And one of the reasons I've always been drawn towards paganism is the role of the crone, and looking at that as something to look forward to. I can look forward to my wrinkles. I can look forward to my age. I don't need to fight it because that's just exhausting, really. So yeah, definitely. Okay, let's see. Okay, checking your comments here. Let's see. Ooh, nice comment here from Julie mentioning that she likes to make a leaf wreath. Ooh, that would be something really fun to do if you do live somewhere with a lot of deciduous trees that drop their leaves, gathering those and trying to make your own natural wreath. Of course, you can buy them, but I think it'd be a really fun project to try and make your own. Sure, it might not be as aesthetic, but that would be something I would like to do. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll have many leaves here. Let's see. Let's see. Ooh, interesting question here. Sam is asking, how can one deal with living in a Christian household when you are not Christian or when you're practicing a different religion? That's something I've gone over a few times. I did a Pagan Happy Hour episode a while ago about pagan prejudice that you can check out. And then I also did a video about coming out of the broom closet, or how do you tell others in your life that you are thinking about paganism or thinking about becoming pagan. But this can be very tricky. If you are still living at home with your parents and they completely disapprove, you kind of need to decide, is it worth that confrontation? For some people, yes, it is. It's worth the arguments that will, of course, ensue. But for me personally, I actually kept it a bit quiet, a bit hidden when I was a teenager. So I did have an altar that I used as my bedside table. And then for each ritual or spell, I would take items, put it on my bedside table, and then put them away afterwards. So I didn't necessarily have an altar that stayed there at all times. So I chose to kind of just, be secretive, just because it's just, a couple more years and then I'll be living on my own. I can do what I want. But it's a very personal decision on if you choose to tell your family, if you choose to practice in a way that is obvious. And there are, some things to consider. Obviously, it's really sad that people look down on paganism, that they think it's somehow evil or satanic. But for the vast majority of Christians, you're probably not going to change their mind. So you kind of have to decide, is it worth the drama or not, and act accordingly. But great question. And I know many of you guys are going through that, and I really do feel for you. It's rough. Yes. So let's see. Okay. Well, I think I'm just checking your comments here. Let's see. Let's see. Interesting comment here about Baba Yaga, who is kind of the Slavic crone of autumn, mentioning that would make an interesting topic. Yes, I actually did a whole video on Baba Yaga, so I recommend looking that up on my channel. But Baba Yaga is super cool. And yes, I think she is this fascinating interpretation of the Slavic version of the crone or the witch. And I like how her morality in the stories is not necessarily good or evil. Sometimes she helps the protagonist out, and sometimes she kills them, or gets them into harm's way. So I like how she's such a complex character in Slavic folklore. So really fascinating, and I want to learn more about Baba Yaga for sure. Let's see. Okay, awesome. Well, I think we should maybe sign off here. I have a dinner that I am going to this evening. My mom came into town to visit me. I'm in my new place for the first time, so we're going out to celebrate. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching, for sharing a drink with me. Next week, we are going to be talking about the autumn equinox. So get ready for that. I'm really looking forward to it. And again, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this chat and discussion, and I'll see you soon. Bye.